And then from there, verse 6, he says, those of us who believe in Jesus, we will never be put to shame. In other words, if we believe in Jesus, well, we're going to be found to, our faith has been legitimate. Our faith is in something that is true and valid. We will never be put to shame. And then he mentions the fact that the living stone, capital S, not us, but capital S, Jesus, is not only the living stone, capital S, but he's also the cornerstone. He's the cornerstone. Now, unless you're in construction, the cornerstone probably really doesn't mean too much to us. But particularly in the first century, it was a big deal. When you built a house, when you built something here, the very first stone that you laid is called the cornerstone. Now, and not always, but typically, it was the biggest stone, and it was certainly the most important stone. Because, hey, if you put the stone here, and you wanted the building over there, well, tough, the cornerstone is here, and so you build according to where the cornerstone is. The cornerstone is the most important stone in the building. And what is his point here? Remember, he's saying, imagine this. We're building a spiritual house. We're building a structure. And you as Christians, you're part of the building blocks. But the most important block, the most important stone in this spiritual house that you're imagining in your minds, the most important stone is Jesus. And his point, I think, is clear. Jesus is the most important person, spiritually speaking. Jesus is the cornerstone. He's a big deal. We're stones in this spiritual house. But Jesus, capital S, the living stone, he's a big deal. He's the most important stone in this building, okay? But tragically, some people don't believe in him. In fact, the writer says that some people actually stumble over him. I sort of picture, just walking in the street and you look down, you tripped over a rock or something. And the idea is they stumble over Jesus, meaning they don't believe in him. They don't think he's the cornerstone, the most important stone in this spiritual building. Spiritually speaking, Jesus doesn't mean anything to me. I know you Christians regard him as really, really, really a big deal, but to them, he's not a big deal. And so they stumble over him. And in this context, stumbling over Jesus and falling means you'll be eventually judged for your sins because you have rejected Jesus. You don't believe in him. And so if we were to sort of sum up, what is he saying here? Okay, and, I recognize this is kind of a difficult passage to follow, but if you're taking notes, this is how I would sum it up. Christ is precious to us, but he's a stumbling block to others. Christ is precious to us as Christians, as followers of Jesus. Oh yeah, he's precious to us. He's not only precious to God, verse 4, but he's also precious to us. We believe in him. We think he's a real big deal. We do believe that he is the most important stone in this spiritual house. But tragically, some people reject him. He is not precious to other people. They literally stumble over him and they look down on the ground. It isn't a big deal. They don't think Jesus is a big deal spiritually. Okay, he's not the cornerstone in this spiritual house. But so Christ is precious to us, but he's a stumbling block to others. So he sort of lays his foundation. No pun intended, really. But now he's going to talk about the people of God. He's going to talk about these living stones. He's going to talk about us. And now we're going to start talking about specific responsibilities, beginning in verse 9. And oh man, verse 9 is loaded. He says, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people belonging to God, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. Dear friends, I urge you as aliens and strangers in the world to abstain from sinful desires which war against your soul. Live such good lives among the pagans that, though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God in the day he visits us." As I was thinking about this verse 9 again, it's just loaded. 4 descriptions of who we are as Christians, as followers of Jesus. I mean, my gosh, we're a chosen people. We're a royal priesthood. The priesthood it's mentioned a second time, so that's important. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. But not only are we a chosen people, not only are we a royal priesthood, we're a holy nation. We're a people belonging to God. Again, we don't really have the time to talk about all four of those things in detail, but I think the general thrust from those four descriptions, I think I'd be safe in saying this. As Christians, we're special, okay? Hopefully you won't, you can see that we're special. We are unique. And particularly, again, the word priesthood. That's the second time it's mentioned in this passage. And remember, we've talked about this. If something is repeated, it's important. The writer is emphasizing it to us. And so think about this. If you're a priest of God Most High. You're a pretty special person, okay? You're part of this spiritual house. Well, what is it that a priest does? What are these living stones supposed to be doing? What are Christians supposed to be doing? Well, the second half of verse 9, I think it tells us that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. That you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Translated, we have to be ready and willing to articulate how much God has done for us. Be ready and willing to share our faith, to tell other people about Jesus. I used to be... I was not saved. I was going to be judged for my sins, but not anymore. I used to be in darkness, but God has called me into his wonderful light. I used to be in a place where God didn't show me any mercy, but now God does show me mercy. We have to be willing. Remember, we are a holy priesthood. And don't look at the person next to you. I'm talking to you. You are a priest, and this is your responsibility, and it's my responsibility to declare the praises of him who called us out of darkness into his wonderful light. So there's responsibility number one, all right? And then in verse 12, we get responsibility number 2, okay? And it's closely related to the first one. But he says in verse 12, live such good lives among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God in the day he visits us. What is he saying there? Basically, you're a priest of God Most High. You have to be on your best behavior, okay? You have to be displaying your good deeds. You have to be, a godly example. People are watching you, okay? You are a priest of God Most High, and so you have to be on your best behavior. You have to live morally upright lives. That's your responsibility as a priest. And maybe, just maybe, even your enemies will actually eventually come around and they'll glorify God on the day that he visits us, okay? In other words, if we set a good example for other people, being godly men and women, true followers of Jesus Christ, well, even our enemies, even the naysayers may eventually come around and glorify God. And if you want to know how I would sum up these verses, this is the heart and soul, I think, of what he's saying to us today. Our purpose is to be a good witness and a godly example. That's what he's saying here. We are priests of God Most High, and what is our purpose? What are we supposed to be doing? Our purpose is to be a good witness and a godly example. Now, if you're here, you're thinking, well, okay, but I don't know if I'm really going to be doing that, Chris, to be honest with you. Well, think about this. The people that Peter is writing to, what kind of situation are they in? Remember, spiritually speaking, they're in the trenches. They've gone off the road. Their culture hates them. Their culture can't stand them. The government is actively persecuting them, literally hurting them, harming them, even killing them. And Peter says, you guys don't get off the hook. I know things are tough, but you guys don't get off the hook. So what do you think? Do I get off the hook? Do you get off the hook? No, we don't get off the hook. These are our responsibility. Our purpose as priest of God Most High is to be a good witness. That is, to be able to verbalize how much God has done for us, what he's done in our lives, and we are to set a godly example. Show them that Jesus is real. Show them that Jesus is relevant by doing good deeds, by showing them that Jesus is a big deal. He is the cornerstone. If we honestly expect people to stop, stumbling over Jesus, oh, he's not a big deal. If we honestly expect them to stop doing that and to come around, we have to be doing this. We have to be a good witness. We have to be able to verbalize our faith, and we also have to be setting a godly example for other people. Otherwise, people aren't going to change their mind about Jesus. Come on now. They're not going to do that. Which brings us here to the bottom line for this morning. And the bottom line is a pretty short and not quite as in your face as last week, but it sort of approaches it. The bottom line for today is to live up to your calling. Live up to your calling. Like it or not, this is our responsibility. We are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a people belonging to God, and we have a responsibility. And we can't shun this responsibility. We can't. We're like living stones. Remember, like living stones built into the spiritual house. We're called to be a holy priesthood. Like it or not, whether we accept it or not, we have a responsibility. We have a calling. Again, people all around us, they're stumbling over Jesus. They don't think that Jesus is a big deal. They don't think he's the most important stone in the spiritual building. Come on, he's not that big of a deal. We have to convince them. And the only way they're going to be convinced is if we live up to our calling. I say again, if we really expect the people at work to become Christians, if we really expect the people at school to become Christians, it stops and it starts with us. We represent Jesus to them. For most people who are not Christians in our realm of influence, we're the only influence that they have regarding Jesus. They don't go to church, they don't watch TV, they don't listen to religious stations. We're it. And if they don't hear it from our lips, the right things, then they're going to keep stumbling over Jesus. Nobody else is going to do it. Nobody else is going to do it. We have to be a good witness for Christ, meaning we have to be able to verbalize our faith, how far God has taken us, what he's done for us. And we also have to be willing and able to consistently set a godly example.